This is David Odell with Odell Complete Concrete. This is our first day on this particular location. What we're going to do is clean up this side yard here, because you know side yards always have a tendency to collect debris, because that's the least seen and least visible. But we're going to clean this out in this whole side yard and add some concrete. What it is back here is an old raised planter that's kind of been buried. We're going to tear that raised planter out and move the flat concrete all the way over. Here's the patio. We're going to be removing this concrete. It's got some major cracking in it, so right away when I see this I go, okay, there's obviously no rebar in this, because the width of the cracks determine that. See how wide that crack got, and then notice how it also raised up. That's a good indication there's no rebar. I mean, concrete can crack with rebar, but it's most likely not going to shift that much, so I knew this was going to come out fairly easy when I looked at it initially. Also, we're replacing those 4x6 posts on that patio, because they were all rotted out at the base of them. Here's what the side yard looks like when we had to move those little sheds, storage sheds, out of here. And now we're getting into the good part. And this is what we found behind the sheds. We didn't know what this was, but it looked like it had a lid on it, so we started probing this. We found an enclosure here with water in it, and it looks like an old ammo box that was floating in here. So we pulled it out, and it really reeked in that water, actually, because I don't know how long it had been in there. But it had a lid on there, and the lid had been decomposed. It looked like the water went through it. Now I just opening this lid, I'm just kind of skeptical what's in there, so I kind of jumped back just to make sure it wasn't something weird in there. But this is what we found. Looks like some old powder, and I found some old receipts in there too that was all the way back from, I think, 1990. So it had been in there for quite a while. And the beauty of this little ammo box here is it really kept everything dry and sealed. Even though it was floating in water, it stayed, everything was in perfect condition on the inside of this box. Pretty amazing. So those ammo boxes are great for storage, it looks like. But anyway, getting back to the job site, now that we've figured out what that was, we're just going to demo that whole corner. It was a little concrete vault enclosure. We'll just knock it out of there, and then we're going to lower that whole planter wall down and make the concrete flat all the way across. They got some 4-inch wide blocks here that are just kind of stacked and very minor footing, so it comes out pretty easy here. I think the dirt was harder than the block, actually, so we had to get the clay spade out. Yeah, what we weren't anticipating on this, once we started digging this raised planter, is that the footing of that existing wall was about a foot higher than everything else, so it was just like a footing in midair. So we had to build a curb around that. Now back here in the backyard, what I'm doing is I'm getting ready to reinforce this patio cover so I can knock these posts out. So I'm just going to lay some 2x12s on the ground, and I'm going to use some 2x4s, and I'm going to nail it together with some 16 duplex nails, these 2x4s, so it makes essentially a 4x4, but a little stronger. Then I'm going to prop that up underneath that beam, and that's going to hold the weight of this patio cover while we do the actual concrete and replace the posts and post brackets. So I also put steel stakes behind these 2x12 bases so they can't kick out on me, and then I've also toe nailed them into the plate and into the overhead beam, so there's not going to be these can't move, in other words, while we're working underneath it. Now these existing posts that were in here were redwood. I found, even though they were redwood, they still get dry rot, and that's what happened to the bottom of these. And it looked like at some point they've cut up about 6 inches off the bottom, and they put concrete blocks underneath these posts. And there was actually no anchors well, let me take that back. There was a piece of like rebar sticking up out of the concrete into the middle of the post at the base, but that was all rotted out. So these were just kind of freestanding there all by themselves. They've just been there so long they just stayed there. Paint, held them together and stuff. So what I'm going to do is, now that we've got the braces underneath there, I can knock those 4x6s out and we can remove the concrete. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some 4x6 post brackets. I'm going to pour separate footings for each one of those, and then I'll keep that recessed down below the bottom of the slab, and then I'll pour the slab over that footing and then around the brackets, so you have a nice clean edge there. And then if the posts ever rot in the future, you can just unbolt them, pull it out, slip a new one in there, and you never have to do this again. So since it was all cracked up, the first thing I determined is that we're going to need rebar in here. So that way if it does want to crack, it's not going to start shifting all over the place. It can just crack but not move. So we'll put rebar in here. And this particular area is expansive soil conditions too, and I had already known that, so that's another good reason for rebar. Plus, I'm going to up my cement to, I'm going to go 3250 psi on this particular mix design. The concrete here, there was some weepscrete left on the stucco, so it was pretty tight up against it. And we're going to try to get underneath that a little bit more, so the water can drain out of the stucco if need be, although it's covered patio anyway. But you can see how easy those 4x6s fell out of there. They just had a couple little toenails in there, and that happened to be a splice on the beam, so that's why I double braced this on both sides of that beam, because that was actually a splice there. Now I'm just going to use a little cat's paw and dig these nails out. I don't really want to do a lot of damage to the wood of this beam, because I don't really want to replace that. I don't want to use a lot of wood putty and paint. So I'm going to pull the nails out nice and gently. I mean, you could typically just tear the beam out of there, but you're going to pull wood down with it probably. So you want to get the nails out first, or screws, whatever they may be. Now there's that footing of that wall you just seen real quickly there. Now here's the new posts we're going to be putting in, and here's the new brackets. These brackets are my favorite ones to use because they come with the screws. Some brackets come with two big bolt holes that go all the way through the beam. I don't care for those. I like these where you get multiple screws on both sides. They're hardened screws. Now before I put these up, I'm going to go ahead and prime all the wood. The tops, the bottoms, that way it's nice and sealed up against where it meets the beam, and also underneath where it sits on the bracket. Even though I have the brackets raised up off the ground about 1 inch, you still could get some moisture there, so we're going to put 2 coats of primer on everything before I even install it. Now that primer, eventually you can paint over that whatever color you want when you paint the house, but for the time being this is going to get the job done. Now I've already pulled a line for my concrete elevation, and then what I did is I measured down from the beam to the line. Now I know what length I need to cut these. You could set these brackets independently from the post and then plumb bob down and get them in the right place, but what I like to do is just connect them to the post and then put the post up and hang it from the beam, and then put the level on it, plumb it, and put the concrete around the base. Takes one step out of the equation basically by doing it this way rather than trying to just free set some post brackets. So here's all the screws that go in. I think there's 8 of them or so. Looks like 6. Comes with 6 screws for each side. Now that hole at the bottom of the bracket, did you notice that hole? Well, that's if you want, you can run a piece of rebar through that, and that's for your lift. It's not for your downforce. It's really for your uplift. Most of the patio covers, it's all about uplift and lateral. Has nothing to do with downforce. So we've got all that primed at the bottom and top, and we'll put these in. We're going to put some brackets, some T brackets as well, that go down from the top beam to the post. Those are going to go on later down the road. Right now we're just going to get these posts up, toe nailed in, and then we're going to do some touch-up paint, and we're going to pour the footings around there, and then once those set up, we'll pour the slab. If you notice, the bottom of those post brackets about 3/4 inch raised off, so you want to keep that up so your metal's above the concrete basically. That way you get good water runoff, so the water doesn't set around your wood at the bottom. So we hung these up, toe nailed them, and now we're just putting the concrete around the base. Now we're going to keep that concrete a little bit low, that way our new concrete slab can go right over it, nice and clean. Now I'm jamming some rocks in there just to kind of hold this post where we want it to be, so it's plumb. It kept wanting to swing where it wanted to go since the concrete was wet. So by jamming a couple broken chunks of concrete in there, it'll help hold it where we want it. So once this dries, these post brackets dry, we can pull all the bracing out and put the load on these beams in case there is any settling of that footing for those posts, and then we'll pour the slab around it in that order. Also on this one, we're doing a little thickened edge all the way around the perimeter here. Instead of just a basic 4-inch around the edge, we're going to about a 6-inch. That'll help tie all these posts in laterally as well. So the top of this form is right to the bottom of these post brackets. And we've already established elevation, so we got a little bit of slope from the weep screed. We got about a 1/2 inch below weep, and then we got about 1 inch all the way from the house to the outside edge of form. Now here's back to that side yard where we had that interesting discovery earlier. So we're going to have to put a curb around this foundation of this wall just to make it look nicer, and then also help support the wall. I'm just going to use a 2x12 on some steel stakes for this curb. And we're going to be, it looks like we got to go 8 inches off of that wall to encase that footing. And we'll just do a monolithic pour with that curb face and the little 3-foot, addition to the side yard concrete. And what I'm going to do also, before I pour the concrete over that footing, because I kind of want it to bond to this footing in this particular case, because I really don't want it to start falling off the edge when I strip this to, while it's wet, so I can get a finish on it. So I'm going to put some glue. I'm going to clean that footing pretty good with the pressure hose. Then I'm going to put some Quikrete concrete glue on it, and then I'm going to put the concrete on that. That way it's going to bond to that footing. Okay, here's the next day after we got these posts in. We're pulling out the bracket, pulling out the bracing. There wasn't any movement at all when we did this, so we know that it's holding it very well. So we went out a couple inches on the outside of these posts because we want to get concrete all the way around these post brackets. It's nice, even 6 inches is even better to get on the outside of those brackets, but as long as you get at least a minimal of 2 inches, should be okay. So also I'm rebuilding right now the because I wanted to save the orange tree or the lemon tree, whatever, some kind of a fruit tree right here. So we saved that, so we had to make a return on that raised planter. And the other raised planter that I had torn out, I saved some of those blocks, so we'd have a perfect match when we rebuilt. On the rebar, we're putting them on 2-foot spacing. We're using a 3/8 rebar. Now here's the glue going on that footing like I was talking about. This is the day of the pour. The concrete's going to be here in about 30 minutes. So I just sprayed it on there with a little pump up garden sprayer. There's that block I had to rebuild for the end of that planter. I also put glue on this side as well. It was kind of a rough edge there, and then I doweled in as well. Then we ran into this. We're just getting ready to pour, and then I found out that we needed a conduit for future potential into the backyard. That outlet that's on the back of the house there, that could potentially be popped out, and you could drop in some electrical and get into the backyard for maybe a fountain or whatever else you might want to need for power in the backyard. So we had to make a quick run to the Home Depot, or might have been Lowe's, it was one of the local hardwares, but we've got some conduit, and we're just going to do some 1/2 inch here. 1/2 inch conduit with a nice sweep at the end, so it's easy to pull the wires through. I'll just kind of come up right underneath this electrical box so they can tie into that at some point if they ever want to use this. So I put it underneath the rebar, that way it won't affect the structure of the concrete. Now if you put that pipe on top of the rebar, it'll probably crack around top of it, but if it's under the rebar, you won't have that problem. We'll put a little tape around the bottom of these posts to keep them clean as possible when we're pouring. There's a little stucco damage there. On this side over here, we have the rebar running all the way under the curb, and then we've also doweled it into the concrete on the side here. That way it'll never move independently from one another. Throw a couple kickers here and there, and then I'm just going to kind of slope it down to meet the other concrete right here. Even though the form's high, we can just freehand it on the inside edge. When we're troweling this out, what you want to do is get your trowel underneath that 2x12, because we're going to be stripping that off while the concrete's still wet, just to get a nice finish on the side of that. And if you can finish underneath your 2x12, it'll come away a lot cleaner and a lot less work when you go to trowel it. So when setting that curb, you want to make sure you allow for that on your slope. Otherwise, you might not have a choice and finish high up on that bottom of that 2x12, and then you're locked in on your strippage, and then you got a big area of concrete you have to fill in with the bottom of that 2x12. So on the jointing here, we just put it in between each post. So they're approximately on 8 foot, 8 and 8 foot centers. So we basically got 8 foot squares here. That's your 10-inch wide, half-inch radius walking edger right there. I used a 3/4 deep half-inch radius joiner. This is your fiberglass funny float. Now I've got the matching hand joiner to that walker, and that's 3/4 deep, half-inch radius. And I'm just going to carry those joints right up and over the curb, and then also I'll run the joint on the face as well, because the concrete, if it does want to crack, it will continue to crack up that curb, so you've got to continue your joints. Now the positioning of these joints over here, what I did on that is I looked at the old concrete where it was cracked, and I just lined up my joint lines to those, because it's already moving there, and so this will have a tendency to want to move in the same location. So you just continue out the cracks or joints that are on the existing adjoining concrete. And especially since I put glue and rebar dowels, it's going to definitely move in that same order. I'm just trying to shape up this little drop off in the back corner here. A little tight fit. Now we can start pulling some of these upright vertical stakes, and we can leave the kickers to really hold it in place until the last minute just before we strip. I have some really narrow edgers that we can use behind these posts. You can buy them like that, but I usually just take a grinder and I'll cut a 6-inch wide edger right to the handle, and I'll end up with about a 2.5er. Now here's your steel funny trowel. Concrete's nice and tight at this point. No bleed water. Joints are staying nice and clean and open. And we'll be putting a non-slip broom finish on that as well at the end. Here comes your vertical stakes. They're coming out right now. And I did oil this 2x12 up really nicely, so you're going to see how easy this thing comes away and clean. Look at that, not a rock pocket in it. You really don't even need a hand float when you come away that clean. You just start hitting it with a trowel. You can almost broom it as is, but we're going to touch it up a little bit anyway just for fun. I'll run a 1/2-inch cove at the bottom, and then I'll run the 1/2-inch top tool. And there's not much left in the middle when you do all that. Depending on the size coves you're using, you can almost catch this whole curve from the top and bottom. I got some minis on me, but so that leaves me in about a 4-inch space in the middle that I'll have to hand trowel after I run my top and bottom tool on that curb face. And you can see how creamy this mud is right here. That's the beauty of getting a good concrete company that delivers a good mix. It makes everybody's job easier, and you end up with a better looking product. Like I've always said, you can't really make you can't make a ribeye steak out of some chuck or something. You gotta start. The ingredients have to be right to begin with, otherwise you're not gonna get that good stuff. Now on this particular side here, it was a little elevated in comparison to the landscaping, so it's going to be kind of visible for for a long time. So I'm going to trowel out the side of this concrete here. That way it looks pretty decent. I mean, they may cover this and build up at some point in the future, but for the time being, it's definitely going to be exposed. So we'll trowel it out nice and neat. Now this other side, the lawn was a little more elevated, so we didn't have to pull and strip on that side. Now here's your final step, your broom finish, which is 50% horsehair, 50% nylon. And the reason that is, otherwise if you go with, they do have 100% horsehair broom, but just like on a horse, on the mane of a horse, it starts to kind of roll over. It doesn't stand straight, so you stick the nylon in there and it holds the hairs nice and straight. You can see I use a pretty big trowel. I'm just used to a big trowel. Cover more area quickly, and a lot less strokes. Now here's your mini, same combination broom as the other one, horsehair nylon, and it also has a handle, so you can just unscrew it off of your pole and do it by hand if need be. Like say you're coming down a set of steps or something, you can just take the pole off and broom as you go. There's your final product right there. Now this also is all sloping towards the front yard as well. Now what we have to do is we have to come back here the next day, bring the sheds back in, because the sheds are out on the driveway right now. Now we can fit them back in here and slide them up against that curb, and then you're going to have a little more walking space going down through the middle. There's the block I rebuilt just to kind of simulate the old one. This was the pea gravel mix, 3250 psi, and makes it nice for cutting joints because you don't have the big rock to contend with. Here's the next day after we went back to kind of clean everything up. Added some topsoil along where the forms were, and pressure washed everything down. I did a little more paint touch up at the top of these posts. And you can see that all the water runs off real nicely. There's the conduit coming up for future electrical in the backyard. Anyway, if you like this video or you want to see more like it, subscribe. Press the subscribe button. Also, if you want to see the latest and greatest as they come out, hit the little bell next to the subscribe, and then you'll get notifications that we've just uploaded a new video, and you'll be able to see them right away. Thanks, and have a nice day.